All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for another Secret Sunday session. Today, I'm joined by beautiful Ariana from EMBODY Health London, aka the Dancing Dietitians. Now, you normally do have a second part. Unfortunately, being in London, you guys do have severe cases of COVID-19, and unfortunately, she has it.
I know, she got caught.
Damn it.
Yeah, but she's okay. She's okay, everyone. Yeah. She's recovering.
That's okay. So we're just going to speak with Ariana today. So basically, just to start off, what is EMBODY Health London?
Yeah. Well, thank you. First of all, thank you so much, Ashley, for having me, for inviting both of us and me being here. So yes, I am Ariana. I'm one of the co-founders of EMBODY Health London, which is an eating disorder and body image clinic in London. So we are specialist dietitians, and we work specifically with two main buckets of people. One of them are those who are recovering from active eating disorders, things like anorexia nervosa, bulimia nervosa, eating disorders otherwise specified. And then we also have the other bucket, which we work with women who are kind of sick of dieting, and they've been yo-yoing maybe the majority of their life. They've been on and off all of those diets that are out there, and they are ready to kind of step away from that and just move towards a life that they love, free from food rules, right? So those are the two main kind of buckets of people we see, and yes, we are dietitians with a very holistic approach.
Yeah, I'm very interested because you kind of do dietetics differently on your socials. You're very much into the dancing scheme of things. So how did that actually come about?
That's it, right? That's it. We are known as the Dancing Dieticians, officially on TikTok. TikTok advertises us as that, which is it's funny how that just caught on. But yeah, we feel we take a very optimistic, a very positive, empowering approach to the care we provide and the information that we share with the world. And the reason being, of course, living with an eating disorder or body shame or having a negative body image can be really distressing, and a lot of that can be very a lot of serious talk around it, which is important because it's such a serious topic. But at the same time, that can make it very kind of fear-provoking when seeking help and seeking support. So what we try to do is kind of break down those barriers and be more approachable to the world, in the sense that, we are health professionals. We are here to kind of live our best lives and want to share that with other people so that they can live their best life too, right? So the idea is, how can we bring more positivity and kind of destigmatize seeking help in these types of areas, if that's what people are struggling with. And of course, dancing is always fun, so we hope people join the party.
Do you find you've got a good response from the dancing and as well as informing people?
Yeah, it's a great question, because that was something that Cassie and I were a bit like, okay, should we be doing this? Is this okay? But you know what? People are absolutely responding so well to it. So we're just pleased, and that's kind of what kept us doing it, is that people are kind of saying, wow, this is so positive. This is amazing to see. It's refreshing. It's so helpful to us. So we get a lot of kind of positive feedback, and that's what's kept us going effectively. Yeah.
Awesome. I love it. Every time I look there, I'm like, oh my God, another one, yay. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very positive. It's great. And I think it does. It breaks down the stigma a lot and makes it a bit more fun. So, all right, I want to dive a bit into diet culture now. So it's a big term that we often use to represent a big field. So what is diet culture?
Yeah, loaded question. It's a big thing. You're totally right. It's quite chunky. But yes, diet culture really represents, the world that we typically that we live in. It's really a culture that really idolizes a specific body shape and size, specifically that of a thin body. And this is considered to be the thin ideal, right? The ideal body shape that many people, especially women, must work towards, right? So it's like a cultish in the sense that it's this idea that we must do this. If not, it's like you're not cool. And it's this idea that we start kind of brainwashing people to believe that this is what the goal should be, when in reality it's not. It kind of, so the idea of diet culture is actually comes from, it's been around for quite some time. There's been a lot of research on the history of diet culture, and they actually suspect it's been around since the ancient times. But in those times, diets were actually seen as just a way of life, right? And that's technically the technical term of diet is a way of living, what you eat, and just how you eat it. It's not about rules specifically. So over time, it's evolved to become this big thing that is quite restrictive in nature, and it creates built these types of rules and rigid rules that people must follow. So that's really what diet culture is. It's really about striving for an unrealistic body type, because we know that everybody is so unique and everybody's not meant to look the same and fit into this mold. So that's what we try to move away from, in essence, in the work that we do.
Yeah. In diet culture, I think there's also a lot of scientific reports that I guess support, restricting certain foods and eating certain
Yeah.
foods. I guess, how do you
Mm-hmm.
know what's right for you when, I mean, you're getting a paper that's scientifically proven, so you feel like you must believe it.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great question. It's interesting because a lot of media will kind of extrapolate. They take bits and pieces from research and will kind of blow it up. And what's interesting, and what we know now with more evidence, which is kind of the beginning of this health at every size movement that we're seeing, and we're hearing a lot more of, which is almost like a rebellion against diet culture. But what we're actually learning is that in these studies, they often look at weight loss leading to specific health outcomes. However, when we kind of really dissect it further, we understand that it's first thinking, how do people achieve that weight loss? Typically it's going to be engaging in health promoting behaviors, right? So if we kind of peel it back, there are a lot of studies that demonstrate that health promoting behaviors independently to weight loss actually lead to improved health outcomes. And so, yes, some of these studies will look at weight loss, but they're really looking, the conclusion is misleading. It's taking the weight loss as the parameter that leads to the health outcomes, rather than the actual thing that the people did to get the long-term health outcomes,
Yeah.
which is having a more balanced way of eating, and perhaps moving more, for example, walking more and such. So there's a bit of a misalignment in the conclusions, and that's typically what we need to promote. Yeah.
Do you think the culture has become, like you talked about in the early days, how it was just diet, where now it is this culture? Do you think it's become more, I guess, marketing and selling products,
Mm-hmm.
actually looking after yourself?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So roughly after the Second World War, we saw, the industrialization. That was a big movement, and of course that's when people started thinking more about nutrition, after people were kind of experiencing famine and all that jazz. So that's when food guides started coming out, right? And governments started to kind of taking part in directing the public's way of eating, and that's when the rules really started shaping. Uh, but nonetheless, at that point, it was still, a voluptuous woman, a curvaceous woman was still idolized at that time. If we think Marilyn Monroe and things like that, like it's beautiful. And only until the 60s, when Twiggy, I don't know if you're familiar with Twiggy the model, and then the Kate Moss era, these kind of people started becoming quite famous, and probably for the wrong reasons, but that's when people started saying, oh, thin is actually cool. Like, she's a model and she's really thin, so maybe that's what we should be doing. And that's really where we started seeing the thin movement, was the beginning of the 60s and then onwards. So that, yeah, to get to the point, it's really, it's a movement. It's shifted in terms of what's important based on what we see in the media. So yeah, marketing has a huge part to do with it. Yeah.
Why do you think women become so obsessed in their body figure and wanting to change it to look like, whether it's Marilyn Monroe or the Kate Mosses of the world? Why do you think that we always want to look to be someone else than we're not?
Yeah, it's really deep rooted, right? And this is a lot of the counseling work that Cassie and I do, is is thinking about, we hold a lot of limiting beliefs if we've been taught, oh, first of all, a lot of our beliefs come from childhood, and then onwards we kind of just accumulate them over time based on what we're told in the media, what our friends tell us, our social group circle. Maybe when we're in high school, it could be a big thing. Our parents, we model our parents' behavior. And so if it's almost like if our parents prioritize that and believe that that's an important quality, then it's almost fed to us as children. And we can start seeing body image distortions at the age of 5. So just to kind of give an idea of a 5-year-old looking in the mirror and saying, grabbing their stomach and saying, no, I'm a bit chubby. Maybe I need to lose weight. A 5-year-old, and you're thinking, you need to grow. That is not a priority right now, right? And so there's actually the limiting beliefs that we accumulate in terms of how we're shaped and conditioned. And then, of course, there's also a false sense of security. So if we've experienced loss, abandonment, some sort of trauma, it can be deep-rooted in that way. Can be as simple as just wanting to fit in, but there are a lot of different factors that can lead us to believe, okay, well, if I am thin, people will like me, and I'm going to be safe and secure from, and I will have a greater likelihood of not being judged, right? Because there's a fear of judgment, fear of abandonment underlying that. So it's quite deep rooted when we can start dissecting it in terms of why people desire thinness.
Yeah. Do you think social media has had a major impact on that body image?
Yeah, there's a lot of research on that actually. Is the more social media we use, the more likely we are to experience body image dissatisfaction. So yeah, I certainly think with the advent of technology and smartphones and such, we're seeing that there is a rise, and there has been an increased prevalence in eating disorders and poor body image, effectively.
I
Yeah.
feel like even these days, that I feel the body image sort of stigma is changing a little bit. We are seeing people that are of all sizes embracing their bodies and happy to share what they look like. Why do you think, though, still things like eating disorders are on the increase when we still have these movements where people like just embrace who you are, love who you are, yet we still have that increase?
It's interesting, actually, because I asked myself the same thing. I'm thinking, we're doing all of this work. We're part of the movement. Come on. I have to tell you, I'm like, why is it still happening? But it's interesting because I guess you and we are part of that circle. We're very much looking for the help at every size. And that's the information that we kind of get fed back into our, like our news feed, right? And the discover pages and such, because we're looking for that, and that's what we're following. And so social media will effectively kind of tailor what they show to you based on what it is that you want to be reading. And so what I often find is that my clients will be following weight loss accounts or influencers that are promoting juicing and all of these unsustainable ways of life, and they're kind of saying this is the right way. And so when we start kind of looking at it, when we follow enough people, it still gets fed, that information still gets fed to us. So I think beyond social media, though, there is still that culture in, for example, the fashion industry, which is an industry we work with, dancing, right? Dancers, gymnasts, and all of this. So there's still other cultures that feed into diet, that kind of feed off of diet culture as well. So it's still so pervasive. There's still a lot of work to be done. I think we're just at the tip of the iceberg with this whole movement coming, rising.
Yeah. What do you think, like, how can you avoid diet culture if you're someone that's a part of it and you're like, look, I don't want to be part of that anymore? How do you avoid it when you see it everywhere?
Yeah. Something we coach our clients with a lot, because that's so important, especially when you're getting ready to kind of just move away and just be free from the shackles of diet culture. So I guess some top tips that I would share are first, cleaning your social media feed, as we're saying, very important thing. So, unfollowing toxic accounts that make you perhaps second guess yourself, or that make you feel like, oh, I wish I was like that, or why am I not like that? If there is an account and you see some content that makes you feel that way, unfollow. Do not kind of keep that there, because that's just, you know, we want to raise those vibrations. We don't want to keep bringing you down. So definitely cleaning your social media account. Also following body positive and anti-diet accounts. So purposefully starting to choose the information that you kind of absorb and take in. Another thing is not engaging in diet talk, right? So in your social groups, so being careful to talk about what you're eating, what you're not eating, you know, calories, what you look like, and emphasizing everything on your looks. You know, compliment your friends on other beautiful qualities that they have, their intelligence, you know, how caring they are, trustworthiness, all of that. So not engaging in diet talk or fat talk. And then of course being able to start, so knowing your supporters, right? So if you have friends that are just not helpful, that are kind of bringing you down, that are not actually supportive, take a second guess. And it's a difficult thing to do, and it's a process, right? But at the end of the day, it's thinking, what is going to be best for me and who will allow me to thrive, and who wants what's best for me, really, because that's what I want for the world as well. So it's being able to kind of surround yourself with supportive people.
Yeah.
And lastly, as the holidays are coming up, you know, unsolicited comments, being able to start thinking about the voice that you want to have when it comes to that, so that you can start shifting other people's perspective if that's something that you want to be embracing, and standing up for yourself, because yeah, you are so worth it.
Awesome. Grab some little inspo in there.
Yeah.
So leading into food rules, are food rules, I guess, encouraged with diet culture?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we think at the essence of diet culture are diets, right? The diets, most notably, I mean, there's so many out there, but most notably, like Atkins is an example, where it's like a modified kind of keto diet, which is very, very low in carbohydrates. So a rule for that one would be you mustn't consume more than X carbohydrates. You must have a lot of high fat, right? And so there's a lot of rules where it almost feels like it becomes inflexible, right? So whenever it feels inflexible, or there's a contingency around when and how you eat, that is a food rule. So it can easily be like intermittent fasting. You cannot eat before this time, right? So that it becomes very inflexible.
Yeah.
And it does that impedes your ability to tune in with your inner body wisdom effectively, in terms of your hunger, your fullness, how much you want, because every given day is so different.
Yeah. Wow, it's very interesting. I like that side of it, where you talk about the food rules and in terms of the diets as well, because it's like this really, you're so restricted to when you should eat, what you should eat. Why do you think, well, where do these diets come from? I mean, keto for me, I've only heard about it in probably the last 6 months, but how
Right.
does this pop up out of the blue? That's my perception. How do these diets just pop up all the time?
Yeah. No, that's actually a really great question, because often these diets, for example, Atkins, or you know, the purest form of keto, it actually did come from a clinical reason, and it serves a purpose clinically. And what it was actually developed for is children living with epilepsy. So we absolutely know that a child who's diagnosed with epilepsy may experience remission and kind of reduction in severity or overall epileptic seizures when following a keto diet. Now, this is so specific clinically. And what's interesting is, and again, this is why the media kind of pulls, whoa, let's use this and blow it up because it's for the general population, but it's really not. So that's the thing, is many of these diets will come from a clinical reasoning. There's a reason why they've been created in the first place, but they're again extrapolated to benefit the diet industry, which is, I mean, thriving, unfortunately. It's like $72 billion annual industry.
I just don't understand how you have clinicians and people that, like, if that's the people with epilepsy, how can you be sharing that and giving that to people that don't have that? Like, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's, I mean, yeah, it's really, it's shocking. And I guess people like to experiment with themselves, And you know, I'm all for it if you feel like experimenting, sure, but it's thinking about how are we sharing this, and just because it's working for one person doesn't mean it will work for everybody. And that's the danger of diet culture, is it generalizes and it assumes that everybody can fit the same mold. And that's so incorrect. We're so genetically unique. We have our own blueprint. We have different physiological needs, different, you know, food needs, nutrient needs based on our biology. So yeah, it is mind-boggling.
Why do you think people often ignore their body and what their body's telling them and look to diet culture and, I guess, external messaging to tell them how to treat their own body?
Yeah, yeah. Well, so again, it's going to be deep rooted. So often food rules start from childhood. So if we go back, if we remember, so World War II, after that, after experiencing famine, it was very common for parents to say, do not waste your food, right? We need to make sure we use all the food, eat everything on your plate. And that kind of just went on and on to different generations, if we think about it. So I know my parents did it. I'm sure, I don't know if you can relate, but it's something that we so commonly hear is you must finish your plate, right? It's you know, or people, you know, people are starving in the world. Why are you not finishing it? Be grateful, and all this type of talk. So we actually start accumulating diet rules from a young age. So already in childhood, we start being externally referenced, right? And so we start losing that natural intuition that we actually have, right? From infants, if we think of a newborn child, they have intuition. They cry when they're hungry, they get the breast, they turn their head away from the breast when they're full. And then over time, though, in childhood, when parents want to make sure that their kids are growing adequately and they want to make sure they're feeding them enough, that's when the rules start coming in. And then they kind of just accumulate over and over again. So instead of a child saying, Mom, I'm hungry, or Mom, I'm full, it's you must finish your plate. So already we're teaching ourselves to override that natural cue.
Yeah.
And so with diet culture, it's almost just adding the layers on top. But some people may seek to it, again, trying to feed back into the idea of I must fit this mold. So I guess it's normal, because there's such a large percentage of people who follow diet culture and the messages. It must be normal not to have snacks in the day. So I'm just going to starve before my next meal, right? And that kind of thinking, it's believing and perhaps not knowing either. There's a few different factors, yeah.
Yeah, I find people as well, like in the whole health and well-being industry, people often just want to know. They want to be guided with what am I supposed to do to my body to
Yeah.
get to this place, and they'll latch onto anything.
Yeah.
So I guess everyone is looking for that big answer. What intentionally is the answer?
Yeah. Yes. Cue intuitive eating. Yes. Yes. The answer at the end of the day is that your body knows best. And by peeling back these rules that have been accumulated over time to really get back to your true, you know, your true signals is going to be the answer, because your body's so wise. Everything is tightly regulated in the human body. So, you know, in terms of your blood sugar levels, how they're controlled. I mean, the pH of your blood is tightly controlled, you know, this whole pH diet. I'm like, no, your body knows how to do it. All of these things are tightly controlled, and the body knows what it needs to survive and to thrive. This is how we've evolved. So intuitive eating, in short, would be the answer, which is a self-care eating framework. It's really a framework that we use to guide people to go back to their inner wisdom, where they increase what we call interoceptive awareness. So interoception is being attuned with the feelings inside, like your visceral organs, the sensations. So for example, when you're hungry, you start tuning, oh, okay, I'm feeling the rumbling in my stomach, I'm feeling lightheaded, I have a headache, I'm low in energy, my mood is changing. All of these cues are telling you, okay, maybe we need energy now, so it's time to eat.
Yeah.
And then when we eat and we start kind of nourishing ourselves, effectively our blood chemistry will change, right? As we're digesting, our stomach will start, kind of the volume will increase, telling our body, whoa, okay, we're good, you've eaten. So the volume is increased. So all of these mechanisms are telling our body, okay, cool, you've had enough. That's fantastic. So the ultimate truth would be listening to your body, because it knows.
Do you ever get like asked or told by some of your clients, I'm too busy to think about, tuning into my body every single day.
Yeah. Well, typically with our clients, they come to us ready to change. So they're like, I'm going to do it. But yes, I've heard that before. And there is such thing as what we call a chaotic eater, right? And this is, let's say top-notch CEO, lawyer, back-to-back meetings all day. They're so busy. They're managing a family at home, plus breadwinner. I mean, I don't know, right? Everything going on. And yes, it can be very easy to forget to tune inward because you're literally on go. You're like autopilot.
Yeah.
And so it can be a risk factor for binge eating, for example, right? And the reason being is when we are a chaotic eater, we're suppressing our hunger. We're at greater risk. It's not, always, it's never a generalization, but we are at greater risk of not sensing our hunger because we're not tuning in. And so therefore, by the time, let's say our workday finishes and we have a little moment, the hunger catches up to us and we're thinking, oh my gosh, right? So that is what we call hunger silencing. So if we are really, really busy, our hunger can be silenced because we become in this fight or flight mode, right? Stress response we're on. So that is something to look out for. And some of the strategies that my clients really like and they enjoy that works for them is setting a little reminders to check in on their phone. It's like, ding, are you hungry? And then they kind of check in with themselves. So whatever works for you. But yeah, it can happen.
Wow. And it's great because honestly, we do the work to achieve things that we want to do. And sometimes, all the time, if you want to achieve the work within your own body, you've got to do the work as well.
Exactly. And it comes down to being ready, right? If you're ready, if you're determined, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now you talk about intuitive eating in terms of like the general population of like general people just to eat intuitively. What about someone that does have an eating disorder? Is that the right message to give to them?
Yeah, it depends on which eating disorder. It's a really great question. So intuitive eating is not always appropriate as the first intervention for some clients. So someone with an active eating disorder may not have that attunement that we talk about. So especially for someone who's undernourished, especially in that case, but anyone who's experienced trauma as well. So we know that those who live with eating disorders are at greater risk of having experienced childhood trauma, for example. And so they, as a result of experiencing pain in their body, they almost create this distance, what we can call dissociation in a sense, right? They don't want to feel their body because it's a source of pain. And so in those cases, it would be very difficult to start thinking about hunger and fullness because they don't want to live. They don't want to it be embodied is what we call it, embodiment. So a lot of work, we typically work closely with psychologists in our clinic to be able to kind of have a two-pronged approach with our clients. And of course, some more counseling and specifically looking at nutrition and making sure they meet their needs. Getting in touch with self-care is a really great place to start. Is how can we care for your body and show respect for your body so you can start building that relationship so that it doesn't seem like such a scary place to live in. And then once we do that, then perhaps intuitive eating would apply later on in the eating disorder recovery pathway journey.
Yeah. With eating disorders, I know personally, like sometimes a lot of times with eating disorders, it's the carbs and the sugar that people want to cut out. How do you reintroduce that when you have diet culture that is just absolutely exploding with don't eat sugar, don't eat carbs? How do you reintroduce those food groups that are just so bad?
Yeah, a lot of education. So we always start with some what we call nutrition education. So really understanding what role these food groups play in our body. Why does the human body actually need them? And to start so that they can start relating to, oh, maybe that's, maybe I would have a bit more energy. Maybe I'd be able to actually go for a walk if I wanted to, right? Maybe I'd have less headaches for some people. So it's education and kind of trying to tie that into how they're feeling.
Yeah.
And then, of course, what we would do is we always work with the client. We're always in a team. I always say it's team we, not team me. So it's very much, let's work together and see what would be the most realistic next step for you. So we're not going to say, okay, you haven't had carbs at all in X number of months or years, go all in, right? It's thinking about, okay, how can we kind of reintroduce it in a sensible way where you feel safe and that it's comfortable until we kind of reach a point where actually you are meeting your needs.
Yeah. Wow, that's awesome. And with
Yeah.
intuitive eating, is there also a sense of, we talk about there's no food rules as such in intuitive eating. So is that freedom to eat anything that you wish?
Mhm. Yes.
What a good diet.
Exactly right. It's like delicious. Well, that's what we hope. It is delicious, but to kind of answer that, you're right. There's a misconception that, oh my gosh, am I going to be unhealthy if I just eat what I want, everything I want? And the idea is that intuitive eating comes with permission to eat all foods. So it's ultimately your body, and you decide. You are empowered because there are no rules to actually decide what you want to eat. It doesn't mean, oh, because I'm allowed, I'm gonna just eat a whole, the whole candy shop.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole cake. But if you want to, you totally could.
Yeah.
How do we think you'd feel afterwards? Right? And so that feeling, that's what ultimately dictates your food choices, not an external rule. Right? So for many of my clients, what they can experience is, let's say they are told, okay, let's explore that food exposure, right? What is it that you miss the most? And they kind of start introducing it. It's what we call systematic habituation. We habituate them to this food that they feel like they will be out of control with. So we start introducing it. We kind of create a bit of a structure around it so they feel safe. And then what may happen is, yes, they may feel like they've overeat it for let's say a week because they've missed it. Of course, it makes sense. But eventually what ends up happening is a really beautiful thing, is that they start thinking, you know what? If I want it, I know I can have it, but I've had it. Okay, I'm good. I've had it so much that I'm okay. I'm okay now.
Yeah.
And so that's where we want to get people to is if I want it, I know I can have it. But actually, if I ate it all the time, I probably wouldn't feel so great. So maybe not today. I'll maybe skip today because I just don't feel it, right? Yeah. So it's coming from a really intuitive place rather than saying, if I can have it, I will have it.
Yeah.
Yeah, a bit of a nuance.
Yeah. In those stages, how do you
get
people to, because quite often when you reintroduce food, you're kind of like, oh my God, I've never had it, I'm just going to eat it all. How do you get people to just stop and go, no, I've had enough, I'll have one slice and that's it for me? Because I know that's often where the binge sort of comes in, where you can't stop yourself. So how do you stop yourself in those moments?
Yeah. So there's a lot of inner work, a lot of awareness that we do, but ultimately when we're thinking binges, we want to at least reduce all of the potential causing factors. And there's three main ones that we can kind of think of. First one is delayed eating, right? If we delay eating, let's say we have a few coffees and we're drinking caffeinated beverages to push away our mealtime, we are at greater risk of a binge later because, as we know, the body's going to say, whoa, you're not feeding me, but I'm going to have to go on autopilot here because I need energy. And so we actually see some biological changes. We see physiologically your hunger hormone goes up and your satiety hormone that tells you when you're full goes down. So that tells us by the time you're actually going to eat, you're going to feel perhaps out of control because you're so hungry and your body has a delayed response to telling you you're full. So that's something that we want to kind of keep in mind. And so a lot of education comes with it. But of course, so delayed eating is something that we want to make sure we are not experiencing as much anymore. Another one is making sure that you have adequate portions, right? So if we have too small of portions, we're not meeting our needs, again, it's going to kind of come around and bite us in the end, right? And lastly, overall restriction, right? So if we can limit restriction in the first place and promote and tell our clients, we kind of tell them to have regular eating moments in the day, then actually we're going to prevent the binge eating episode from happening most likely. Of course, there's an emotional side to binging, but in this case, in terms of feeling more in control, effectively nourishing your body and adequately will give you more of that sense of control, so that you won't feel like at mealtime I need to have 10 slices of whatever. Yeah.
Wow, it's fascinating
Yeah.
how the body works. It
Yeah,
interests me
right.
every day. It's amazing.
Exactly. It's like if we just work with it rather than against it, it works out.
Somehow I always think that our body's the problem, and it's like we don't need to fix our bodies. They're beautiful just where they are.
Exactly. They're so magnificent. They are literally masterpieces. So yeah.
We just got to get more people seeing that.
Yeah, exactly. Let's just make it a mantra. Everybody.
And
Yeah,
everybody. Yeah,
exactly.
all the choir.
Yeah, exactly.
So do you find with people that go on your intuitive eating and you help them through that journey, they end up learning to love their body and embrace it?
Yes, yes. So in the same way that we kind of got there to that place where we're like, oh, it's amazing. That's where we get our clients, right? And that is the end goal, is the idea of, wow, if I work with it, it's easy. Like it makes sense, right? Why have I been fighting it for so long? And you start appreciating what your body does for you every single day. So that is one piece of the puzzle, of course. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. So that's the idea, is we're improving your relationship with food. And often we get so many of our clients saying that kind of spills over to so many other areas of their life. The relationship they have with their body, the relationships they have with their friends and family. There's less conflict at the dinner table. It's more peaceful. They're more adventurous. So many benefits come with improving our relationship with food.
Yeah, it's just amazing how many rules we put on ourselves when really we can be free beings. Like we
Yeah,
want to be
exactly.
like that. And it's just
Exactly.
the messaging. Yeah, do you
Yeah.
think people should be held accountable for the messaging that they put out there, because some of the messaging is quite dangerous.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Definitely. Yeah. I think words are really powerful, aren't they?
Mm.
And we have to be careful with what we share, and think about what potential impact that may have on other people and the wider public. And I think when you're creating social media content, we have a responsibility, right? This is kind of going out there in the World Wide Web, where everyone can access it. And it's just thinking about what potential impact may this have on other people.
Yeah.
So being quite aware is an important piece when we're thinking about sharing information. I mean, knowledge is power, but equally, I think, yes, when there are people sending harmful messages, it's important for them to be called out on it. If we see it, yes, we have to say something.
As you said, I think especially when the messaging is being received by everyone, so you've got little kids as well as grown adults.
Yes.
Do you find that with your clients that you have mainly adults that are ready to make that change in their lives rather than young people that are probably still trapped in it?
Yeah, we have, yeah. Yes, sometimes it takes a bit more time than others. We will have all the young people. So we work with young adolescents, young people as well in our clinic. So it really depends on how they get there. And it's interesting. So yes, we have a lot of women and men who are kind of fed up with diet culture, and they've been yo-yoing. So yes, they get to a point where they're like, you know what? Oh, there must be something else. Let's do it. And they are so ready. When it comes to eating disorder work and support, it can, we have a lot more young people and equally middle-aged women who will be absolutely ready, because they know, they're like, this is exhausting, right? And they're like, I know it's scary to take the step, but I'm ready. So you may be scared, and it is an absolutely scary thing to seek support, but nonetheless, that you can still be ready and scared all at the same time. So yeah, most of the time we will work with clients who are ready.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
And in London, what I'm just not sure, being here in Australia, we have different services, but what services do you guys have for eating disorders? And even, I guess, how is your body image movement going in London and England?
Yeah. It's great. It's going. I think there are very few clinics. I think in comparison to, I will be honest, in comparison to Australia, and I know Canada and the US, there's not as much.
Yeah. Okay.
I will say, in terms of advocacy, but there still is. It's not at all that there aren't. There are bodies, but it's just less. I can count them on like one hand almost, rather than it being so shouted about and promoted in Australia. I know there's a lot of leading researchers in Australia as well in the field, and same with the US. So I think perhaps there's a bit of a discrepancy. But nonetheless, how you would get support. So of course there are the public services. So speaking to a GP to get a referral would be the most common pathway. However, there is this common unfortunate idea of, if you're not sick enough, you're not sick enough, even though you can be. And please, for all your listeners, if you are struggling, then that is sick enough, right? You shouldn't be struggling, right, with the relationship you have with food and your body. So that is enough. But of course, GPs have to, what we call triage. They have to prioritize who is going to receive the help based, because there's so many limited beds or services available. Unfortunately, in the UK, I have to say there's a lot more mental health. It's just staggering compared to, let's say, I know where I'm from, Canada, very different. So you would have to go through GP referral or private services such as EMBODY Health London, or there are other lovely clinics in London as well, or in the UK in general.
Yeah. Do you have people reaching out for help and wanting that help, and they're just not having the services, or they're just not reaching out at all?
Yeah, I think we're going to see probably a bit of both. I know it's, like I said, it can be very scary for someone to reach help. And I imagine, I guess you may know that too. And the idea is it can be very overwhelming. So we've had a few clients reach out, and they may be as young as, 14, and say, and when you ask them, have you spoken to your parents about it so that they can seek help? No. And as a private service, of course, it's thinking, okay, well, there is you have to kind of pay for the service. So it's almost coming, and it's so heartbreaking. So we have to give hotlines and resources that way, so that at least they have somewhere to go, especially when they're that young and they're scared of what their parents may say or other people may say. So there are a lot of charities that do a lot of fantastic work. Eating disorders is a big one here in the UK. It's like the mother of all charities. Caroline, there are a lot. So ABC. So a lot of them offer free services, support groups and such. So that's where we would direct people who can't, or who are scared, or who don't have the resources to seek support and are on a waiting list. So for young people in the UK, as a young person, you actually, it's called CAMS, the Child and Adolescent Mental Health Service. That's where I actually used to work. They are like a priority, right? There's more services available in that sense. But when you become an adult, it's a lot more cutthroat in a way, and they have to really be prioritizing.
Yeah.
So it's a bit more difficult that way. Yeah.
How do you cope with, hearing all these heartbreaking stories? Like, wouldn't that play a toll on your mental health?
What a great question, Ashley. Yeah, we care so much about our clients, so it can be a lot to take home. But that's, the same way that we preach self-care for our clients, we equally have to make sure we're engaging in self-care. So Cassie and I have our own kind of ways. We meditate. Meditation is a huge one. Journaling, reading books that are not related to work. So make sure to fill my mind with other things as well. Support system, right? Having a support system, people to talk to, going outside, retreating in nature, yoga, exercise. For Cass she loves kind of more of the fitness type gym stuff. I'm more like Pilates, yoga. So really we have our own coping strategies, and that's important to us. Equally, it is difficult. So we also have what we call peer supervision. We talk about difficult cases. We kind of offload, share, create that space where we can talk through some clients to make sure we're giving them the best care, and also we're taking care of ourselves.
That's awesome. That's so incredible to even hear practitioners that are practicing self-care. I mean, you got to walk the walk or talk, whatever.
Yeah. Talk the talk. Yeah, exactly. That thing. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we have to, right? Because if we're well, then we can help people be well. And so that's the idea.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, I thank you so much for joining us today, and I've learnt so much, and I hope everyone else has learnt so much as well. It's just mesmerizing the whole field. You think you know a little bit, but there's so much more to learn. And
oh my gosh, yeah, the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, I know. And you're absolutely amazing in your field, so you should be so proud of yourselves. And everybody out there, where can we find you?
Yeah, thank you so much, Ashley, for your lovely words. It's always so great to hear, and it fills our hearts up, because we love what we do. So where you can find us, we are embodyhealthlondon.com is our website. You can also find us on Instagram at embodyhealthlondon_. and Twitter and or Facebook and TikTok at Embody Health LDN for London. So yeah, that's where you can find us. I would love to see all your faces, and yeah, it's been such a pleasure, Ashley. So thank you so much.
Oh, you don't have to thank me at all. All we're doing is starting a conversation, and I really, really appreciate you joining us from London, where it's bright.
Yeah.
It's amazing how we can communicate from across the world, but it's
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
The times we live in.
Cassie, the best of recovery for us all.
Of course, will do. Will do. She'll be great. Yeah, she'll be happy. Well, thank you. And I wish you a lovely evening on your side of the world.
And thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today for another Secret Sunday session.